see if it's working. Okay, so I'm here with Tom Seppalainen, the cluster coordinator for knowledge, values, and rationality. And I'm going to ask him some questions about that cluster. And my first question is, what should a student who's taken a knowledge, values, and rationality course, what should they know or be able to do?
Well, the key concept there is rationality. So rationality as it pertains to or relates to values and as it relates to facts. Okay. And then their interplay. So most basically you can start with the values and say that students should be able to reason, construct own arguments, and reconstruct other people's arguments that have value conclusions. Whether those values concern the environment or healthcare or more personal matters. Okay, so the key is that they have some sort of coherent responses to some fundamental issues about reasoning with values or establishing value positions or conclusions. So I can rattle on about some of these dimensions, and they would include such things as, can people be mistaken about what's in their best interest if values have something to do with interests or utility? Is there such a thing as moral expertise, not to mention a moral genius, or things of that nature that talks about the hierarchy, that concern the hierarchical nature or expertise nature of this area? How should we decide over moral disputes? Okay, or probably most fundamentally, what does it mean for someone to be incorrect about a moral claim? Often people say, and especially students think that morality is somehow very subjective. And that's one of the fundamental issues about the rationality of values, as the titles of the cluster indicates, values and rationality and knowledge. So, you can continue about issues of social justice and even such things as can one be unjust towards oneself, but certainly about social justice. I mean, what does justice mean? What forms can it take? And that crops up in a lot of our social practices, policy issues, and so on. So I guess fundamentally, when it comes to this question of ethics or values, the most fundamental question is what role should reason and evidence play in moral matters, including one's own moral life. So that would be on the value side. And when it comes to that argumentation bit, how do we think about reasoning about values? They also should acquire a sensitivity, if not explain, the difference between a rational argument that leads to a conclusion and then mere rationalization, where you have kind of a predetermined conclusion and you're just kind of fitting your facts and fitting your principles to what you sort of desire out of them. So which leads kind of to how you change your views that are important always in learning and also in kind of societal interaction.
So what would you say that the disciplinary backgrounds of this cluster? It sounds like ethics, obviously, philosophy.
Yeah, so
rhetoric, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Usually, you wanna read through the rhetoric or analyze away the rhetoric to get at the actual position. So the kind of background, broadly speaking, would be in ethics, reasoning, proper reasoning, and then the other. So we like to think about it in two ways. So that's just one half, if you will, of the class. We like to think about it in terms of the cluster as consisting of courses in ethics or moral philosophy, and many of its applied areas, with the social and political philosophy, environmental ethics, and so on. And then what we call practical epistemology, fancy word for different areas of critical thinking.
Okay.
So we'd want to enhance similar skills when it comes to literacy about facts and their bases, right? Okay. So we want the students to be able to recognize also unrational or non-rational mechanisms or processes of belief formation in other areas. Not just values, but simply facts. Facts were the theories, phenomena, or data concerning reality. So often we talk about science on this score. So that's one of the central topics of that cluster too. how can we distinguish between, broadly speaking, sciences or warranted belief practices or methods, and then those that have very little merit, but people still believe in, whether it's astrology or faith healing or whatnot.
Okay.
So that would be kind of the side of, if you will, facts. People often distinguish between facts and values, but in this cluster, we want to enhance understanding of these rational processes concerning belief formation in both areas.
Okay.
So so critical thinking is a broad term, and it's one of the learning objectives, obviously, of all of our clusters.
Sure.
But the focus of knowledge, values, and rationality is squarely in that area, critical thinking, and in these two areas of facts and values, and then how they come together.
Okay.
And of course, they come together all the time in our lives, and certainly at the societal level too. So
great.
So that would be kind of a broad overview of what the KVR
Okay. Thanks.
tries to accomplish.